Dan and Corey here, welcoming you in to Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
Yeah, welcome in to another rousing rendition of Libservative, the show of two intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy for Bell the Body Snatcher. He, as always, is Corey Walsh.
And he's Dan Griffin.
And I want to start this show by mentioning something that I think I'm going to mention at the open of every show until it's fixed. So probably when we're dead. Flint, Michigan still does not have clean water, and East Palestine is still basically a war zone. So that's how we're going to start each show going forward as I keep up with all of the great works of Status Quo. Hopefully we can get one of those guys on the show here at some point to talk about real shit as opposed to, Bud Light liking chicks with dicks or whatever the problem in the current culture is. But before we get into anything of substance, Corey, tell the people where they can find us.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today.
Not tomorrow, today.
Today.
Absolutely today. Speaking of today, what we have coming up here on this wonderful episode, we're definitely going to touch on the situation with Steven Crowder. I sit here and I laugh mostly at his dismay. It's mostly Schadenfreude, certainly not at the situation at hand. We have South Carolina, of all states, getting a little bit more progressive when it comes to, I guess you could say, letting incarcerated or formerly incarcerated people actually maybe be able to find some jobs. We're going to talk a little bit about this. I guess Snopes is calling it, right? And you have to take Snopes with a grain of salt, but some of what they're saying is actually correct. Biden's push to punish home buyers with good credit in order to subsidize those with bad credit. There's some truth to that, but there's also a lot of pretty shitty information floating around about that. Corey wants to talk about a black reparations movement that is getting shit on by the feds. Corey, do I have that mostly right?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Okay. The Judiciary Committee, if we get to it, looking into the ethics of the Supreme Court following Justice Thomas's misgivings. And we got some other stuff. Maybe talk about the Maybelline boycott, which is not the same as the Bud Light boycott, but does involve the same person. So this is going to be interesting. And also the state of Idaho being the first to pass a law to outlaw out-of-state abortions is the way it's being portrayed. That's not exactly true. Corey, I don't even know if you looked into this. I don't even know if we talked about it, but I've looked into this, so maybe I'll cover that one for us. It's a pretty interesting thing that's being used by the pro-choice movement in ways that maybe isn't fair, but it's also a really shitty law because it shouldn't have to happen in the first place.
Yep.
However,
nothing about that one.
Oh, that'll be all me. That'll be all Dan.
All you, baby.
That'll be Dan's rant. What are you consuming in the social and cultural sphere? And if you're drinking anything interesting tonight, Corey, what is it?
The weather's nice today, so I'm
Summer
enjoying
shandy.
myself a summer shandy.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've been consuming is I'm all things comedy, it seems, right now. I've been watching The Marvelous Miss Maisel, just completely sucked into that. It takes a lot for me to get sucked into a show and stick with it, and this one I think might have me for the long haul.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks to you and Old Sport.
Am I
Old
welcome
Top
to
Jay.
an Old Sport?
Yeah, J Dog, one of our listeners. And I went to Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle last Saturday. Saw my first stand-up. And then yesterday, the reason why we're doing the show on Thursday is because...
Your first stand-up? We went and saw Jimmy Dore together.
I mean, my first stand-up at a comedy club. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's
I'm
different.
sorry. Semantics. Maybe not. And then yesterday I went to my first open mic for some comics. A buddy of mine from a long time ago who were rekindling a friendship. He was doing some stand-up, went and checked that out, and it was a absolute blast. Got to hang out with a bunch of the comics and stuff, and they're trying to get me to join their cult, Dan. They were like, you got to get up there. And I was like, all right, maybe I'll give it a shot.
You're gonna get to you got to get to the Mecca, the new Mecca, which is no longer the Comedy Store in L.A. Now it's it's Joe Rogan's mothership in Austin, Texas. That's the dream.
That's the dream. I'm going there next.
That is your
just kidding. I'm not going there next.
Dream. I have been consuming the latest John Ronson podcast, The Debutante, only available on audio. I finished it in a single day. If you are or somebody who is interested in conspiracies and conspiracy theories, and like I'm talking about the fun ones. I'm not talking about like being a QAnon member, but like you like to sit and like read interesting stuff about like the JFK assassination or whatever. You're interested in them. You don't necessarily partake in them. This is a show for you. Only available on audio. This show is essentially about a beautiful Tulsa, Oklahoma member of the debutante class turned neo-Nazi turned FBI informant who some people think could have possibly prevented the Oklahoma City bombing. And there's just loads of evidence. This isn't new, and the podcast doesn't bring this out, but there's been a lot of evidence over the years that Timothy McVeigh, the perpetrator of the Oklahoma City bombing, wasn't just an anti-government actor, but he was also a racist and a white supremacist. There's not really a lot to prove this, but there's definitely a lot of circumstantial evidence that suggests that was the case. And, you know, it talks a lot about, it points out a lot about neo-Nazis, because that's a lot of what John Ronson was into, especially in the early 90s, when there were a lot of like these pop-up neo-Nazi groups throughout the United States, and often leaderless and full of clowns and people of low IQ. But this show does kind of demonstrate that maybe the white power movement is a little bit more organized than maybe we would have thought. It's not as organized as like the liberal establishment might tell you it is, as if it's like the biggest threat to America. It's certainly not that, but it's interesting to have this pretty young girl from the debutante class in Oklahoma just become a neo-Nazi, and she's pretty articulate, and a lot of people try to take advantage of her and kind of move her up the movement, and she became an FBI informant and said some things that allegedly the ATF and the FBI did not take seriously. Some of that is because, or at least the theory is that, well, because she was a pretty woman, you know, she wasn't taken seriously by the feds, and maybe could have stopped the Oklahoma City bombing.
That sounds like such a Fed thing to do. Make a pretty woman a informant and then just not believe her.
Oh, it's okay, honey.
And then still give her money, but still just give her a ton of money. Like,
oh, and dude, and there's a lot of actual recorded audio of her undercover for, I believe she was working for the ATF, if I remember correctly, but she was working for one of the federal organizations, and she's really fucking good at it. She's really, really good at it. You can be the judge for yourself if they had taken her seriously, or did anything she said, could it have actually prevented the Oklahoma City bombing? I came away thinking probably not, but it was still it's just an interesting, you know, if you got 3 hours to kill on a road trip or something, 4 hours to kill on a road trip, The Debutante, only available on audio. John Ronson is fantastic. And if his little British voice wasn't the narrator of this podcast, it would not be nearly as good. Corey, I know you'll like it because you like Fed stuff.
Love me some Fed stuff.
Some informant stuff. Definitely a great show. Definitely A+, 5 stars, would recommend. Anyway, shall we jump into it?
Yeah, why not? I was just adjusting my camera there. Sorry.
Let's start with Steven Crowder, because this is a little bit less of a. I mean, it's a serious topic, but not a serious topic. It's not
a
like
serious topic
it's
for
not like
his
it's the war
wife.
in It's not like the war in Ukraine. It's not like a globally serious topic. Corey, I think I'll give you a second. I know you have the video somewhere. This ring video from Steven Crowder and Hillary. I'm assuming her last name is still Crowder. Hillary Crowder, his wife's home, where Steven Crowder is absolutely verbally abusing her. Like, let's not even pretend like it's anything different other than complete and utter verbal and emotional abuse from a man to a woman. I've got you got it up there, Corey?
I just pulled it up. Yeah, and so I'm sure a lot of people have seen this video, but just for the sake of context, we were going to play it on the show as a sort of refresher.
I could use a refresher. I've only seen it once, so why don't you go ahead and roll that, and we'll talk about what it actually means.
God damn it.
Hello?
Why
Is this
aren't you playing?
Is this just a bit on our show now that every time we try to play a video?
Oh, this is stupid.
Has it been taken down?
No, it's on a Substack.
Oh, try refreshing the page. This is a disaster.
This is just a
every
fucking mess.
time we try and roll
there we
a video,
go.
there it is. Every time we try and roll a video.
All right, now play. You've got to be fucking kidding me. I literally watched it right before the show.
It's the feds. It's the feds because I just
page unresponsive. Perfect.
Maybe Bell can find it somewhere else. While we're waiting for that, if one of you can find a version of this video that can actually play.
Unbelievable.
I mean, this was like a 3-minute video, right?
Yeah.
Of Steven Crowder's wife, apparently wanting to. Like I said, I've only watched it once, so I'm trying to refresh my memory on this. Of her wanting to like go somewhere. Like go to the store.
She wanted to go to the store.
It's 15 minutes.
Right. But
it's 15 minutes, and he wouldn't let her use the car.
He wouldn't let
the
her
video
use the car.
that was shared though was only 3 minutes.
Right, like the important parts.
He claimed,
and then they go inside.
He claimed that she didn't act in a wifely manner. So
yes.
So she couldn't use the car, and he was complaining about the no-fault divorce laws in Texas.
Yeah, he was doing that on his show. Talk about how it should be. It has to be mutual for both people that decide to abort or to abort the abortion or abort the
divorce.
Abort the divorce.
That is a campaign slogan if I've ever heard one. Abort the divorce.
That's gonna be Steven Crowder's. That sucks. That's so dumb.
But so this video,
I'm gonna be back with the video. Don't worry.
Bell will find it. So this video is Steven Crowder berating his wife, accusing her of not committing, the sufficient wifely duties, using all sorts of abusive language, telling her to watch it when she had kind of tried to bring up the fact that he had been this way in the past. Meanwhile, this woman is remarkably pregnant. I mean, I don't know how pregnant she was.
8 months.
Yeah, with twins. And this is what, 2021, I believe, was when this video was recorded.
Yeah.
And,
was it 2021?
I think it was that long ago. It was a little while ago. But all she does is say things like you can tell. Here's how you know that Steven Crowder, this isn't like a one-off. This isn't like the first time he did this. You can tell that she in this video is absolutely trying to just get out of the situation and de-escalate the situation, as often abused women do in these scenarios, because they know how these men can get if you don't try to de-escalate. You can see all of the hallmarks of the fact that Steven Crowder has clearly, at least, we can't speak for if he's ever been physically abusive with her, but has obviously developed the behavior of being certainly emotionally abusive to his wife. She says things like, "I love you. I'm leaving. I love you. I'm taking the car. I love you. I'm going to the store.
I love you. I'm committed."
Yeah, and then yeah. Like, why do you have to reaffirm the fact that you're committed to him? Right, you know, that almost almost sounds like somebody who's jealous and like ultra suspicious of his wife.
Because there's
maybe
a part where
infidelity.
He goes about a ride. She's like, "Then fine, I'll call someone." He's like, "Oh yeah, call who?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then he's like, "Watch it, fucking watch it." And yeah, it was just absolutely gross. I watched that and I was really upset about it, actually. Like, I could not believe a guy would talk to his 8-month pregnant wife with twins like that. And it all started, I guess, because the dog needed medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't want to give the dog medicine because she didn't want to put get the medicine on her because it might be bad for his fucking kids in her belly.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Put on some fucking gloves." And you put on some gloves and you do your job. You do your wifely duties.
Do your wifely duties.
Paraphrase it. Those weren't the exact words he used, but he said something about being a wife and called her disingenuous. Because she's like, "I love you," and he's like, "Oh yeah, I love you, I love you." And I'm like, "All right, then take care of the dog." And you're like, "No, I can't. I can't do that, but I love you."
I think Bell might have the video pulled up here if he can get it to go. All right, it's coming from TikTok. Oh god, the Chinese are watching us.
Perfect.
It's not working. Anyway,
big Crowder coming down on the surveillance.
All right, are we ready?
Fucking it all up.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're a boundary. No, you just.
Go ahead.
I do a boundary and abusive. You are not taking the car. If you choose to do rightful things, I will go pick up the grocery. I have steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's not unreasonable.
There's music. Yeah, that ain't working.
But I'll go do it. How about?
That sounds like trash.
He wants pellets for his grill, and
there's music in the background and it keeps making weird noise and stuff.
The audio wasn't great, but you can go find it. I mean, this thing isn't that hard to find if anybody's looking for it, unless Bell can find a better version of it. But
that's the only version I can find. 10 websites and they all became unresponsive. Weird.
Okay. Gee, I wonder why that happened.
This one plays for you. Try that one.
So what I get out of this is because the immediate thought I had was like, okay, there are going to be people out there that are going to say like, this is the poster child for like toxic masculinity, right? Like this is the patriarchy. This is what masculinity does to society. And my response to that is that what is in this video, the way he talks to his wife, that's not masculinity.
No, that's toxic masculinity.
No. That's not masculinity.
That's just straight toxic.
Because there's nothing masculine about speaking to your wife or a woman that way. So
100% correct.
My whole point has always been like masculinity is not toxic, because what masculine men do is they don't do that. And because they have enough confidence in themselves to not treat women in that manner, not treat anybody in that manner. Because if you are masculine and you are confident and you are and you're a genuinely good human being, your masculinity doesn't do anything but provide good to the world. I don't mean to sound like fucking Jordan Peterson here, but that's reality. There's nothing toxic about masculinity. The only men who behave this way are weak. The only men who behave this way are completely insecure. Now, I don't know if Steven Crowder's always been this way or if somehow fame has brought the insecurity out of him.
Like he just gave him this big ass ego.
But there's nothing masculine about berating your wife, or like you said, Corey, the possibility that maybe he's always been kind of a jealous husband, which is kind of what this video brings out. I think a little bit.
Like, yeah, like why do they only have one car?
Yeah, why aren't you trustworthy of your wife to go to the store? Or why
watch
aren't you
it?
Or why aren't you
watch it?
Why aren't you trustworthy of her to get a ride from someone?
Right. And the one thing I'm glad to see also come of all this is all of the other right-wing like talking heads and the social influencers and stuff all coming out against him or whatever. Like Candace Owens, the Daily Wire, all these people are like, yeah, that ain't it, Steven. When last time we talked about Steven Crowder,
I defended him a little
because
bit.
we don't give a shit really about all these other talking heads, and things like that overall, because a lot of them are grifters, and things like that. And when he was coming out with the whole Daily Wire thing of how they were trying to box him in with a contract or whatever, even though it was like an exorbitant amount of money, and he came out whining about it and stuff like that, we actually were like, well, you know what? Thanks, Steven. Thanks for letting people like us know that this is what we have to look out for and things like that. And it was like, oh, like that's kind of cool that he did that. And then after this happens, it's like, oh yeah, nope, he's just a piece of shit. He was probably only doing that for clout. He wasn't actually looking out for anyone like us. And now what's really funny is he's still trying to just post through it, just get through it by continuing to post this stuff online. And everyone just keeps commenting things like, that's it, Steve, just post through it. And like I saw this video where it was like about a protest blocking traffic, and he's like, what would you do if this was you and getting blocked by traffic? And people were all commenting, I'd defend my wife. And then another person's like, I would tell him to watch it.
Because he does say that a few times in the video where she's kind of about to make a point about him, and his overall behavior and his douchiness, and he goes, watch it. Yeah, well, that's how you know. That's how you know he knows that that the way he has behaved has been. And there have been articles that have since come out. I think one from the New York Post I saw from a couple of days ago. No, that's the Daily Beast. I don't really care about that. Steven Crowder wife rant reveals abusive pattern. That's from the New York Post. That's the Hunter Biden laptop people. These are people that are
right. Yeah, right wing outlets are all coming out against him.
Pretty right leaning outlet. And I'm glad you brought up the Daily Wire thing, because now I feel like a jackass, because while I thought at the time, he was kind of being a whiny bitch about the contract, I appreciated what he did by kind of exposing how
the whole thing works.
Yeah, like how some of these things go, especially for up and coming content creators. So, but now it's just like, no, dude, you are just a whiny bitch. You are just a whiny little bitch who, if you don't get your way, throws a fucking temper tantrum. And that's obviously what he does with his wife.
There's a clear pattern
all the time.
He did it with the Daily Wire. Now he's doing it with his wife. And another tidbit on top of all this, he didn't even show up to his kids getting born, right?
Yeah, because he had to get a titanium bar put in his chest for his sunken chest.
Right, which was an elective surgery. He was fine. He just wanted to look more masculine.
Allegedly, because I did look into this. There is actually a scenario where like a sunken chest can cause health problems where this surgery would be needed.
That burp was for Crowder.
But yeah, I was going to say, but it doesn't look like that was the case with Steven Crowder. I mean, think about it. Think about this pattern. Think about the Daily Wire. Like, this is the kind of guy that would absolutely not think his chest looked masculine enough and have to go get a titanium bar put into it while his fucking twins are being born. I can just
picture this guy standing in the mirror going,
touching his boobs. Whenever they make the conversation like that, like, oh, it's an elective surgery, you always have to remember that there's a reason that dental is not covered by your health insurance.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Always keep that in mind.
That's true.
Yeah, I guess we're not gonna sit here and act like we know why he went and got that surgery, but it does track.
Bell makes a good point.
He does.
My getting the metal put in my arm when I had my radial head and my elbow shattered. I could have left it and then had a useless arm or had elective surgery to get metal put in to make it somewhat operational.
That's fair. Yeah, the phrase elective surgery is pretty vague.
Yeah. So we won't shit on him for his surgery, but still,
we'll also shit on him a little bit for getting that surgery. And that's not even it. So like, let's say he really did need that surgery for health reasons. Do you really have to schedule it for the time your twins are being born? That couldn't have waited a few weeks.
Yeah,
or a couple months until the baby's a little bigger.
Science shows us that babies typically show up about 9 months after conception.
Is that a fact?
I think so.
I haven't
Google
had any,
it.
so I don't know.
I just know that 9 months after me and my wife did the dirty, little CJ came, like the stork showed up.
The one time you forgot to pull out.
That is the one and only time.
Corey's got solid swimmers.
I went from thinking I was shooting straight up blanks to super sperm.
Meanwhile, the world wishes Steven Crowder was shooting blanks. That's not fair. I'm sure his kids are fine. Seems like
because you know why they're fine, Dan? Because he's not in the picture.
Mama's okay. Dude, have you? And that's the other thing I kind of wanted to talk about regarding this, right? So, there have got to be people defending him, right? There's simps. There's simps all over. The simps in the incel crowd have got to be defending him right now. Like, wifely duties, I understand.
Man, God, I wish I had a wife to yell at like that.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, yeah. These are the same guys that are like, I'm a really nice guy. Why won't chicks fuck me? Because you're asking why they won't fuck you, you dumbass.
Right. Boy, I sure wish I had a wife to yell at.
These are the kind of guys that get online and go, if you have to say you're a nice guy, that's an immediate red flag for any woman out there. I'm sorry.
I'm a nice guy. I'm a good guy. I return the shopping cart and I don't hit my wife.
Because I don't have one to hit. It just reminded me of that Family Guy bit. One night I lost control and struck my wife. Then I realized my wife's been dead for 10 years. Who the hell did I hit?
Who did I hit? Oh man! All right,
anyway,
so the
Steven
consensus says, "Fuck Steven Crowder."
Yeah, Steven Crowder's a piece of shit. I'm upset. I defended him in the whole Daily Wire.
You know, I'm glad that he let us down because I think it kind of shows like where we are at. And then
I think we always knew, and I think we even admitted during the Daily Wire fiasco that we always knew he was a turd. Like it was,
right.
we weren't defending his character,
but it feels so good to never be an absolutist on anything like that. I get shit on it at work by this one guy who's a big time philosopher because I call myself a free speech absolutist, and he's like, "Don't be an absolutist in anything."
Well, that's an absolutist mentality, though.
Right. Ooh, I can't wait to tell him that.
Never being an absolutist is being an absolutist, right?
Yeah, but and like he says things like that, but it's like in most things we don't really dig our heels in the ground on pretty much anything. I held on for a long time for Tulsi, and then even then I was like, well, she's grifted. But it's nice to be able to go, yeah, no, I don't give a shit. You could say I was wrong. Absolutely. I'm not married to that opinion.
I still mostly support Tulsi.
When she's not just trying to get the clout for likes. She still says some very valid things.
The fame got to her head.
One more fluff piece before we get into a little bit more of the meat.
You want some fluff? I'd like some meat. Oh, maybe it's Mulvaney. Maybe it's Maybelline.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
So any
Bud Light. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
So
set it up, Corey.
So everyone knows the whole Bud Light fiasco with Dylan Mulvaney, and it's looking like they kind of stepped in some shit by for some reason trying to relabel the whole brand of a brand that for about 100. How long has Bud Light been around? Regardless of how long Bud Light's been around, Budweiser been around since Anheuser-Busch been around since like 1883 or something like that, and they've cultivated this cult demographic, the target market they have is just blue collar boys. Some of them might be rednecks. Some of them might just be workers in factories. And they've done a decent job at building this customer base. Well, they decided to try to flip that on its head completely and target a whole new demographic with cheap beer towards a demographic that I don't think, like, in retrospect, like when it first happened, remember me, I was like, well, someone there punched the numbers and they went, all right, well, we can do this because, all marketing plans have a bunch of research into them and things like that. But in retrospect, liberals and people in younger demographics, a lot of them don't drink just piss water beer. They're all drinking craft beers and things like that, or seltzers. So first off, to just turn on your target demographic like that and try to establish into a base that is virtually non-existent for that product leads to a marketing disaster that Bud Light is now facing, where they've dropped 26% in sales. So now, we're making jokes about it last week. They're pulling out the Clydesdale, and now they're making all of these country commercials. They got this whole summer thing, this whole summer marketing plan kicked off, and it's damage control.
They got Zach Brown band involved.
Yeah, Zach Brown. They pulled out the Clydesdales and Zach Brown. They're in trouble. And in retrospect,
even though in the song Toes, he mentions PBR. So.
I have a friend at work who's super conservative, and he's like, dude, he's like, it was just stupid. He's like, why wouldn't they just do it with Bud Light Seltzer? And it was a complete aha. It's like, why the fuck didn't they do that with Bud Light Seltzer? No one would even bat an eye.
No, I think they would have. I don't think it would have been as crazy, but I think they would have.
Yeah, maybe. People probably would have been like, oh, go woke, but it wouldn't have been what it is right now.
Then you'd have Ben Shapiro posting every 20 minutes about Bud Light Seltzer sales are down 23.4% since last Saturday.
Isn't that insane that Daily Wire understands the demographics of the customer base of Bud Light better than Bud Light does?
No, I don't think that's crazy at all, because I think the consumer base knows better than whomever whatever product you're talking about does anyway. We know what our friends buy.
Yeah, so now they're pinning it on a ad campaign company. They're like, oh, it's this outside ad group. The CEOs didn't approve of this, and they're trying really, really hard to fix their issue. And we'll see if the damage is done or not. Everyone's too stupid to realize that half the beer is owned by the same company, so their stock hasn't dipped too much. Everyone's just buying Busch or other products of theirs, even though it's the same company. But Bud Light sales themselves have dipped significantly. So all that's a prelude of what's everything's going on is to the idea that Maybelline is now partnering up with Mulvaney.
So before you get into that, to sum up Bud Light, that is an obvious fucking marketing mistake.
Yeah, you tried to change the brand image.
Anybody should have known. You alienated a huge amount of your customer base, and now getting into Maybelline, maybe not so much the case. So go ahead.
Yeah, so now Daily Wire is on fire trying to attack this whole Dylan Mulvaney thing. And side note, it's almost making me feel bad for this guy, how he's just this target, where I feel like let's be honest. Do you think Dylan Mulvaney reached out to Bud Light and was like, hey guys, put me on your can? I bet you it wasn't.
No.
Dylan Mulvaney probably doesn't fucking drink Bud Light.
As much as she drives me nuts and I think she's a grifter, yeah, I'm not. I
bet she doesn't.
Yeah, she's not at fault. She's not at fault.
No, they hit her up and they're like, you want some money? And she's like, yeah, I'll take some fucking money. And so
anybody would.
It's so now for some reason it's her fucking fault.
Mm-hmm.
And so now they're coming after her. They smell the blood in the water. They got their teeth bared, and she's working with Maybelline. And I think this one's going to land flat. And this is the reason. So the reason why Bud Light fucking failed is they tried to get rid of their customer base and create a new one. Maybelline isn't changing their customer base. They're expanding it because women are going to wear their makeup. All right. They're expanding it to include trans people and drag show people who also wear makeup. So it makes complete fucking sense.
Makes complete sense.
But Daily Wire is just so upset about it. And I haven't seen that one.
Makeup is for girls, Corey. Boys don't wear makeup.
And mimes and clowns and trans people and
Ooh, clowns.
no,
Easy.
I okay. So I'm not saying that they're
It sounded like
conducive to each other.
Like an underhanded dig.
It wasn't. That's not what was intended.
Mimes, and
but there's a bunch of people that wear fucking makeup and they're expanding their customer base.
Yeah, that's just it. I don't think Bud Light was trying to get rid of the customer base that they had. They just should have been more. They should have known what the backlash from that was going to be, and they didn't.
They did not do a SWOT analysis.
Okay, so when you think about Bud Light, who's pissed? Who's pissed about Bud Light doing a collab or an alleged collab with
everyone who drinks the beer?
No, what do you think of? I think of like middle-aged men. Not even. I won't even say white men. I'll say just men. Like,
and it's weird because this might be. You're right, because this might be a psyche thing. Because this goes back to the idea that when we talk about toxic masculinity, these men are trying to portray themselves. These men are trying. Well, I mean, there's aspects of masculinity that are toxic, and this might actually. Okay, that's
I'll defend that till I'm blue in the face.
All right, you just refuse to even put 2 and 2 together. Okay, all right, that's fair. I like that. But a lot of men, they have fragile egos.
Yes, that's not masculinity.
You've ever been around men when someone's building a deck or painting? Every other man has something to say. You know what I mean? And they have an image, right? But they have an image to convey, and none of them want to drink a beer that their friends are going to razz them over, so they're just not going to buy it. So that's why I'm getting at is this was just a bad marketing ploy.
Oh, 100%.
Whereas Maybelline, a girl has eyeliner on, and then a trans person or a drag queen is going to go, "Oh, are you wearing Maybelline?" They're going to be like, "Yeah, are you?" And like, "Yeah, your eyes look fabulous. Thanks." And then that's going to be fucking it. It's a whole different dichotomy. It's a whole different environment.
That's kind of my point was like the same people that are pissed about Bud Light are going to be the same people that are pissed about Maybelline. Here's the difference. The people that buy Bud Light don't buy Maybelline. I guess it's just the way I would sum it up.
Is this not the greatest psyop you ever seen in your life?
What's that?
How many manly men, conservative men, are you about to watch boycott Maybelline makeup prop?
Yeah, I know. All these guys who don't buy makeup are now going to boycott it. It's the most effective boycott I've ever seen.
I guess to be fair, the boycott of Bud Light, at least sort of worked. It's like Bud Light's going to be fine because something new is going to happen. In fact, because
they're all drunks. Because everyone drinking, it's all drunks anyways. They're going to forget.
Yeah, they'll forget. But that's the thing. That's the thing.
Like, watch, as soon as Bud Light, when all those kegs and all the beers in the bars and in the stores all of a sudden are reaching that expiration date, and then they have a bunch of new stuff in stock, and so they mark everything half price. Watch how fast everyone's drinking Bud Light again.
They will. And that's the thing that drives me nuts about a place like the Daily Wire. And there are publications on the left who do this as well. I mean, they're not any better. But it's like culture war shit is so short-lived. It's just like, it's like a couple weeks, if it lasts a month, it lasted a long time. And what the Daily Wire does is they try to take these culture war issues and make them last longer than they should.
Right. They do to that like what we do to like Flint in East Palestine.
Oh, by the way,
keep it on the forefront
Michigan
of everyone's
still doesn't
minds.
have clean water. I'll say it again.
Yeah. Trying to keep shit like that on the forefront of people's minds. For some reason, they're like, oh, yeah, by the way, Bud Light makes you gay.
Oh, yeah.
Because, that's what's important.
We should test that theory. Crack open a Bud Light. Now, you and I, neither of us have ever really been Bud Light drinkers. I'll drink it if it's all that's there, but,
If I'm at a house and someone's like, yeah, grab a beer out of the fridge, and I'm not going to go, ew, Bud Light. I'm going to drink a Bud Light. But I didn't buy Bud Light before this.
He's
I
a
didn't
Miller.
buy Bud Light after
You're
this.
a Miller man, which by the way, anybody who thinks that if you can just switch to Miller, Miller is owned by Coors. And Coors has been like pro LGBTQ. They've run a ton of pro LGBTQ campaigns for actually a while. So you're not doing any better drinking Miller. Just FYI. Just so
what? No, I'm just kidding. I don't give a fuck.
What beer can I drink?
Just whiskey, brother. I just want that Tennessee whiskey made by some old white men.
Fucking
wait, what do you mean? What do you mean there's black men involved in the beginning of Jack Daniels?
fucking maker's mark with ma'am on the label. Honestly, I would buy that bottle. That would be fantastic.
Just to have it, yeah.
Bottle. That would be wonderful. Yeah, chill out. This whole Maybelline boycott, I don't. It's not going to have the same effect. I think is what we're getting at is the Bud Light.
Yeah, it's just give it up. You guys had your win with the Bud Light. We
finally got them, Corey. We got those. We got them queers.
Kick that, liberals.
We got them queerosexuals.
Well, that'll show them.
You want to move on to South Carolina? We're actually gonna give a relatively conservative state its due here. As we just
this is more or less you and Bell.
Really?
Yeah, I looked into it a little bit. I don't really know much about it.
So South Carolina has actually hold on, let me pull up the probably should have done this before. Here we go. There is a bill in the South Carolina legislature that has been introduced and is now in committee, I believe, for the second time as of January 10th. So it's been out there for a while. It is called the Workforce Opportunity Act, and it would prevent the state government of South Carolina and their agencies from asking about criminal history until that applicant has either had an interview or a conditional offer. So, the way it's kind of portrayed in certain circles is that like it's going to be illegal in South Carolina to ask about your criminal history. That's not true. It's just going to be when it comes to state agencies or state government jobs and their agencies, which to me, while not as good as I'd hoped, still a good thing because what are the things that we like to talk about when it comes to things that are quote unquote leftist that we support?
Lowering the prison population and ending private prisons.
I think it's just the prison system in general. Like, what's one of the biggest problems with the prison system is the fact that the recidivism rate is like 49% or something like that. Which, by the way, I don't know if you guys knew this, but South Carolina, of all of the states in the country, already has the lowest recidivism rate.
Interesting. So they've actually been like pretty pro prison.
I mean, I don't know that it's probably a low bar. Like the highest state's probably like 55%, and theirs is like 47. I don't know what the number is, but I would imagine it's probably a low bar. But either way, they still have the lowest recidivism rate in the country, and there's 100,000 jobs available in South Carolina right now. A decent percentage of them are actually government jobs, and I think the general premise of having people actually come interview or be given a contingent offer before you ask if they're a fucking felon is at least a good step, right? Because
that's a great step.
So now you can't just look at applications and go, oh, they're a felon, they're gone. Because how do you know? I mean, and you do, what is their felony? Is this a murderer? Well, if it is, they're probably not out of prison. Is this somebody who made a stupid mistake when they were 17 years old or 18 years old and stole $4,000 worth of electronics? Because
there's still probably going to be contingencies, right? Like if some guy went to like a white collar crime for embezzling money and then applies for a job as a banker, you might make it all the way through.
It's interesting you brought that up because the Department of Corrections is actually exempt from this bill, which it kind of makes sense. But
you can't be a felon and they go get a job working on the outside,
working for the Department of Corrections.
I was gonna say the same thing as you, Corey, because there's a lot of jobs out there where it's like, I probably would want to do a background check on
like a guy's like a kid diddler, and then he goes and gets a job at some YMCA being a swim instructor.
My job.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
Snatching bodies.
Yeah, we're on crime scenes. Well,
I think a lot of it depends on what are the types of jobs that these people are applying for, because you got to think somebody who's a felon, Yeah, I don't mean to generalize or whatever, but they probably don't have an education, right? I'm sure they don't have college degrees. Many of them probably don't even have high school diplomas. A lot of these folks are probably applying for unskilled work, labor jobs. What'd you say, Bill?
And state aid. No, for real.
I know.
Nobody's gonna hire. It's such a vicious cycle.
And
that's, the way it's supposed to be time served, clean slate, get going, but then you have this like shackle on your ankle as you come out trying to find a job and stuff like that. And
I'll give you a great example, man. Like, I mean, I got a buddy, he never went to prison for it, but it's like marijuana is now legal in Michigan. And, he was busted for dealing pot. And his felony's since been wiped, but he had a felony there for a while until weed became legal in Michigan. Like, he's not a bad guy. He's not a fucking criminal. He's my best friend. He's gonna be standing up at my goddamn wedding. Like, I trust this guy with my life, right? He's not, but there were certain jobs that wouldn't take him seriously because he had a felony on his record.
There's gonna be dope pushers at your wedding, Dan, and I'm bringing my son there.
He's clean now.
Oh, thank God, he's off the pot.
It's a dope. Off the pot. Yeah,
he's not injecting marijuana tablets anymore.
Well, to be clear, he was an idiot. He was dealing weed in an all-white neighborhood with cops that had nothing else to do, and he's black. So I'm like, dude, you probably shouldn't do this out of your house. This is probably a bad idea.
Whoopsie.
But I mean, either way, like, I would trust the guy with my life. He's one of my best friends. But yeah, for a while, he had a felony on his record.
That's why if I were to ever deal pot, I would do it out of Dan's house.
My house might be okay. Yeah, I got good neighbors. I don't think they'd tell me. They're either good or they're old.
You don't know?
Oh, they could be. I mean, some of them could be both.
But you
Dan's
don't
just
know?
Dan's just surrounded by pot dealers.
Have you never met your neighbors?
I've met a lot of my neighbors. I love my neighbors.
Oh, you sounded like you didn't know what your neighbors looked like for a minute.
He did. He said they're either good or old. He knows
they're either good individuals that are around my age, or they're just old as fuck.
I thought you were making a guess.
No, I know them.
I was like, what?
Easy. A lot of people don't know their neighbors these days. But yeah, I mean, this is something I think every state should consider.
I agree.
I didn't think South Carolina would be the state to bring this out, but I guess with them having the lowest recidivism rate in the country, in some ways it actually kind of makes sense.
They have 18,608 people locked up as of right now. Texas has 133,772 prisoners.
Jesus.
And how many of those are on death row?
Right. Now, not even all those people that are incarcerated in South Carolina are in a prison or a jail. Some of them are just in state operated facilities.
Does house arrest count? Does house arrest count as being incarcerated?
Nope.
It does not? Okay.
Nope.
I wasn't sure. I have no idea. So yeah, this one's in the committee in the South Carolina Senate. If it passes, it'll move on to the House and get ratified and move on to the governor's desk. So this is one I think this is one we'll keep an eye on, because
that's a good thing.
You can't sit there and talk about how you want to, have your prison system, quote unquote, make people better, and then never give them a job when they get out and force them to reoffend.
Right.
So give them a fucking job doing something. Usually unskilled labor, I would imagine.
I'll bring them back to society anyway, anyhow. Really?
Would you? Okay, so let me ask you guys this question. Would you guys hire a felon?
Yeah.
I have.
You would hire a felon after you interviewed them, right?
Well, yeah.
Would you have any issue not knowing that they were a felon prior to giving them an interview?
No, I don't think so. It really depends. It really, really depends.
You're just giving them a fucking interview. That's all you're doing. You're not hiring them.
Did this guy?
Oh, yeah, because if he has a felony. Well, I guess, let me interview him, see what he's about. I'll ask him about it.
Did he get a felony for beating the shit out of his previous boss?
Then I might not hire him.
But you don't know.
But I think that's the point. I think it's I would honestly rather, if I owned a business, I would rather not know about their legal history prior to, because honestly, even though I'm somebody who's I consider myself really progressive on, the prison issue, I would rather not know, because it might actually affect how I conduct the interview with that person and how I feel about. I might have preconceived notions about that person.
Dad sitting there with a taser in his pocket, just side-eyeing him the whole time.
Yeah. Security.
They move fast and you jump.
No, but I think anybody would feel that way. Like it shouldn't even be in your head that this person's a felon. Then if you want to conduct a background check, but at least now you know that person interviewed well, and you never. I guess kind of sounds racist, but you would have never known that. I never would have known they were a felon. It's amazing. This colored boy came in and did an interview. fucking boomer.
Right.
Anyway, good on you, South Carolina.
Supreme Court, ethically bankrupt?
Are they?
Can they just not be?
Right. So my qualm with this one is the fact that all of the other lower courts have like ethical standards, and yet the highest Supreme Court has the lowest ethical standards.
Oh, you mean overall? Like the standards are
like
just
the
lower.
standards, like what they have in place for different things and stuff like that. Because when it comes to our judicial system, like that's the backstop for a lot of shit. And in the very least, they have to at least have the appearance of being on the up and up. So the Senate Judiciary Committee is looking into them. And of course the Democrats are making it a partisan issue. But they're trying to, it's mostly Democrats, which I give them credit for this, even though it is based on partisan issues, because they're just going after Thomas, which makes it a fucking non-starter. But Democrats in Congress have tried for years to persuade the court to, at a minimum, adopt the ethics rules that the rest of the federal judiciary follows, and they have accused the court of arrogance and dismissing the criticism from the Capitol. That's from the New York Times.
I mean, I guess my immediate reaction to this, because this is a little bit more your topic than mine, Corey, but I know the basics, but my immediate reaction to this is, as somebody who has been traditionally more liberal, which is what I am, I've become, more libertarian over the last, 6 years or whatever it's been. But somebody who's been traditionally more liberal, and I still certainly have some liberal values, I'm looking at a conservative Supreme Court with a supermajority that I have had almost zero issue with since that has come to pass. Now, as we've talked about, the big issue is obviously Roe. I would never, if I had my druthers, it would have never been overturned. But from a legal perspective, I understand why it was. And the Supreme Court has been pretty goddamn good on most issues since becoming supermajority conservative. So,
right, you could, whether you agree with it or not.
Well, should they be held to a high ethical standard? I think they should. I guess I just haven't seen a whole lot on the whole that would suggest that they've been remarkably corrupt. And to me, honestly, that doesn't make sense, because they are held to such a lower standard that you would feel like they would be corrupt all over the place. And maybe they are, and we just don't know about it and do a really goddamn good job of hiding it. But you would think that something at some point would have come out about a case somewhere.
Right.
And it just hasn't at this point, even with all the shit that's going on with Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
Unless they've just been minor. So I don't know. Go ahead. That's my 2 cents based on knowing just a little bit.
No, I would like to see them be held to a higher standard. That's one of the biggest topics we have on here is corruption, self-interest, and things like that. And I like code of ethics and all that stuff. I don't think it's exclusive to that branch. I think it should be across all the branches. But if it's going to be some sort of partisan issue that's going to make them hold themselves to a higher standard, then I'm for it.
Is there any suggestion right now that the Supreme Court itself is fighting this issue?
No, they came out with a letter recently saying that they're going to create some new standards and stuff. So it's a step in the right direction.
It kind of sounds like a university investigating itself when
Right, like,
a
like
teacher
a police
raping
station.
students or something.
Yeah,
like
investigate stuff. So it's something to keep our eye on. It'll be interesting.
So
I'm
I know
hoping
you had
that it
mentioned.
goes.
I know you had mentioned that because we talked about Justice Thomas a little bit in his relationship with alleged neo-Nazi Harlan Crow, and Harlan Crow actually being involved in a case that
Yeah, some company
Justice
he had a
Thomas
major
did
stake
not
in. Yeah,
recuse himself from.
yeah, when he should have, and like he fucking should have, but he
Same,
didn't.
same with his wife.
Yeah. So we'll see where it goes. I'm hoping that there is some more ethics, some ethical standards put there in the courts.
So Corey's going to keep an eye on the ethics of the Supreme Court, and I'm going to continue to take a nap.
Not a boy. All right, so I have my birthday dinner coming up here soon, so I think we have enough time for one more topic.
Oh no, we have
Do you
too
want-
many. We have too many more topics.
I know. Well, we have 2, 3. Do you want to do good credit, bad credit? Who cares? Biden probably.
What time you got to be out of here? 8:00.
Yeah, probably.
All right, we might be able to squeeze in 2 if we make this quick.
And then we got the Uhuru shakedown.
We can save that one because that's not necessarily time sensitive. Let's do the let's do the Biden homeowner stuff because you're into this one, right, Corey?
Absolutely. I'm into all this, Dan. I'm just so happy to be here.
I'm just glad you invited me. So there's been a lot. It hasn't really been too much in the mainstream as you would probably imagine, but Joe Biden. The way this is being portrayed is that Joe Biden plans to punish homeowners with good credit and making them pay higher rates in order to subsidize those with bad credit. And why are they doing this, Corey? The same reason they do all of this stuff. It's all
because this is neoliberalism at its fucking finest. It's the same thing they did with the colleges. It's the same thing they've done with healthcare.
I would
They
call
focus
that more
on they
postmodernism
focus
than
on
neoliberalism,
the
for sure.
they focus on the equity of outcome versus the equity of opportunity.
Yes. So the whole premise of this is that folks that are disadvantaged and have less access to credit are going to be helped out by those of us with good credit. Like, it's gotten to a point now, Corey, where you're not just saying rich people need to pay more for whatever. Now, me, somebody who's a middle-class guy with decent credit, I don't know what your credit situation is or Bell's, but I've got pretty good credit. And if I go and apply for a mortgage right now, I'll pay a higher rate than somebody who has worse credit than me. Now, I don't know. I haven't dug enough into this to know exactly who's affected and how much. I've seen some stuff where, those with lower credit are still going to have to pay certain rates. But the point of it is really, to me, is that when you try to pull those with better credit and make them pay more to subsidize those with worse credit, if that's really the situation, it's another scenario where you are actually hurting the people that you're trying to help, which is what does that, Corey? What system does that all the way throughout history?
Oh, like you mean like when you're doing your best to help, but you're hurting? Like I said earlier with the college.
No, I mean when you're trying to take from one and give to another to make things more even.
Communism?
What system has always fucked that up? Yes, communism. This is nothing short of a communist policy. So now I'm about to tell you, as an intellectual idiot, because I don't exactly know what I'm talking about, this is just me using logic, how this is going to hurt those disadvantaged folks that you say you're fucking helping, which you're not. So in the research that I've been able to do in the last few days, this new rule about mortgages would only apply to those loans backed by Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Now, you may recognize those names from the 2008 housing crisis. Okay. So that should be red flag number one.
Right.
We're not even talking about that, but that should be red flag number one. 60% of mortgages in 2020 were backed by Fannie or Freddie. So 60%, that's a decent amount, but there's still 40% of
Who are these guys?
Yeah.
Freddie and Fannie.
There's still 40% of mortgages that are not backed by these two. So now you're telling me that as somebody with good credit, I'm going to have to pay a higher rate to subsidize those that are more disadvantaged than me.
And now what you're going to create.
So what am I going to do? What am I going to do as that buyer?
Right. And then you're also going to create a bunch of people with lower credit scores where the credit score is like basically the premise of like, are you good with your money? Are you responsible or not? We're just going to dump $200,000, $300,000 loans in their laps and then just tell them to hope for the best.
That's the other thing. But what am I going to do? As a home buyer with good credit, I'm going to go find a fucking mortgage that's not backed by Fannie or Freddie, and everybody else with me that has good credit is going to do the same. So now you're going to have all of these people with bad credit applying for loans that are backed by Fannie and Freddie, but you're not going to have anybody with good credit to subsidize those mortgages.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, does that at least sound logical? I'm not saying that's what's going to happen.
Not at all. And now as someone who's trying to build his credit to get a house, should I just stop working on my credit so I get a better deal?
Yeah. See how you're incentivized to have shitty credit now? Isn't that interesting?
Right. It's just stupid. And it's the neoliberalism way of, like I said, equity of outcome versus equity of opportunity.
That's more postmodernism than neoliberalism.
Dude, well, the neoliberalism it's not about like actually helping the worker class. It's just subsidizing their shortcomings.
And while centralizing power. That's what it is. So this is, like I said, we don't know the specifics behind this new rule, but if my research in the last couple of days has told me anything, this is going to do what communism always does and fuck over the people it's supposed to help.
It's going to make the people that work hard not want to work as hard, and then give the opportunity to people who aren't working as hard, and then it's just going to get exploited, and their shortcomings are going to become apparent. And I'm not knocking anyone that has like I'm in the shoes of the person that doesn't have the immaculate like 800 credit score. I'm in the shoes of the other person, but this is ultimately just going to hurt us as we kick the can down the road.
Well, yeah, because if you're looking for a mortgage right now and you didn't know what this already was, Corey, you'd be like, oh shit, I'm gonna go get a mortgage through Fannie and Freddie.
Right.
And you're talking about Fannie and Freddie, who are the lenders that were the first to, I believe they were the first to collapse in 2008. So it's like, what are we, I mean, here comes that housing crisis. All the people that are looking to buy homes are hoping for.
Let's weaken the money. Let's weaken the what's the word I'm looking for? The consistent payers, the ones who are more reliable based on paper. Let's get them out of here. Let's put all the people in there that haven't been as responsible with their money.
And let's face it, this is also a ploy to boost the capital of Fannie and Freddie.
Yeah, they think, and it might work in the very beginning until people wise up. Because the market's going to create an alternative to where people don't have to deal with the government for it.
More corporate nonsense is what that is.
They're doing this as all the banks become more centralized.
So
we had another big bank just liquidate.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about that. But at the risk of sounding elitist, if you got good credit and you're looking for a mortgage, make sure you know who your lender is backing your mortgage, and make sure it ain't Fannie and Freddie,
because you might be paying a little bit more money that you don't need to.
Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I?
I don't get it, man. I don't fucking get it. How the hell? Like, this is the best we got, Dan. This is who's in charge of our fucking government.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Thanks, Uncle. Thanks, Uncle Joe.
Thanks, Uncle Joe.
Hell yeah, brother. But that's the thing. It's like, it's not even a Joe Biden thing, man. It's like if Bernie were president, name and whoever the Democratic president were right now, whoever it were, I mean, we'd be dealing with the same bullshit. Do we have time real quick for the Idaho stuff?
Idaho.
The abortion law. I know you don't.
I don't know shit about this.
You don't know a whole lot about this.
Lay it on me.
I'll set it up for you because
I'll give you my first take.
It will not take you long to form an opinion on this. We'll take down the banner because I don't think we have one for this one. So, Idaho allegedly is the first state, allegedly, I say, to pass a law to outlaw out-of-state abortions. That's what you're going to read in a lot of headlines. Okay, that's not exactly the case. Are there abortion laws still fucked up? Sure. Especially if you're pro-choice, like I believe the three of us are here at this show. But that's not exactly what's going on here. So the new abortion law in Idaho prohibits adults from taking a minor out of state for an abortion without parental consent. Now, the way this is being portrayed is that Idaho has banned abortions from out of state, which there would be no way to enforce. However, when you read what it actually says, it bans adults from taking a minor out of state for an abortion without parental consent, punishable by 2 to 5 years in prison for helping the minor get that abortion. When you think about that on the surface, I'll get your opinion, Corey. Is that really that unreasonable?
No, like, first off, like, you really got to think about that fucked up scenario to where that child
got pregnant in the first place. Yeah,
not necessarily pregnant. I don't know what the rules for consent is in Idaho, but the idea that like some adult is going to go take a minor out of state
that's not their parent.
And then like try to hide it from their parents.
Yeah, how often is this happening in a state that has 800 people?
Right. This sounds like this sounds like just a virtue signaling bill.
Oh, it totally is, dude. That's my whole point. It totally is. Like, don't get me wrong.
It's enough to get the liberals mad, and then what it does is they get all mad about something that's non-existent. And this is the playbook of the Republicans. This is what they're doing a lot lately. It's like a honeypot, like a honey trap or whatever. They're making this bill to where it's like, we don't want adults who aren't the parents taking minors out of state. And then they're all freaking out when it's like probably not happening that often, but like trying to defend that makes you look kind of shitty.
Mm-hmm.
When like, if there was a scenario to where like, I don't know, because what if it was like incest?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like, how often is somebody who's not the child's parent taking them out of state to get an abortion? Because you have to.
I don't know. Bell might be able to find a statistic, but it's probably one that doesn't happen so often that you can't.
Because you have to think that like when you're talking about parents and children, they're probably going to have pretty similar political views, right? Because they're parents and children. So it's like if they're super conservative, it's like, oh shit, fuck, you're fucking 15, you got knocked up. Well, whatever, that's God's baby, and you're the 15-year-old, and you're going, well, yeah, you're right, it's God's baby. I'm just going to go ahead and have this baby, and we'll just deal with it. Or you're liberal. Your parents are liberal. Well, this isn't the safest thing. We have to go get an abortion. Like, how often is somebody taking a child that's not their kid out of state to get an abortion?
Right.
How often is that really happening? And like, and I'm not here to defend Idaho.
Is it happening enough to where they think they have to make a bill, or is this just something to put a notch on their virtue belt?
I gotta believe that's what it is. It cannot be happening that often. And I have to say, like, I'm not defending Idaho's abortion laws, but like, I think in the grand scheme of the abortion debate, this is so not, this is just such it should be a non-issue. And the thing that made me upset about it was the way that it was portrayed. That's the only thing that made me mad about it. That's the only thing, because it was portrayed as Idaho bans out-of-state abortions. It's not exactly true.
It's not what they did. Yeah,
it's not exactly what they did. Yeah, the sensationalized headline. Now, let me just make real clear. Idaho's abortion laws are, I believe, the strictest in the country. They have a 6-week ban, which is like the whole Greg Abbott situation in Texas that allows citizens to sue if they find out that somebody had an illegal abortion. But the more interesting story coming out of Idaho isn't even that, Corey. The more interesting story coming out of Idaho is because their abortion laws are so strict, you're having a mass exodus of OBGYNs out of Idaho right now. To the point where women in northern Idaho are having to drive an extra 100 miles just to get basic OB care and gynecological care. And like that's the whole point of this, right? This is the thing we talk about all the time on the show, which is even in the most conservative states, the outright ban of abortion is remarkably unpopular.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask next is these are all passed by their legislation after these Republicans getting voted in. This isn't based on put to the people.
No, and one of them one of their abortion laws, which I think is basically it's close to an outright ban. I forgot what it is, but it was a trigger. It was one of those trigger laws. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and in these pro-life conservatives just keep pushing it. They just keep pushing it, and even people that are mostly conservative are okay with some form of access to abortion, even if it's just for health issues. And to the point where you have OBGYNs and you have nurses in Idaho that are leaving the fucking state. Like it is a mass exodus.
There you go. Way to really hurt your own people for a virtue signal. It's just fucking stupid.
None of your women in Idaho have as easy access to OBGYN care as they did prior to Roe being overturned.
Right. And it's just so stupid. Like, and again, like I'm not a person who wants to shit on someone who believes that is a life, that there is life in that womb, and they really think someone's being murdered when there's an abortion. I don't give a shit when citizens are protesting in front of a Planned Parenthood or trying to offer people help as an alternative to versus them getting an abortion. I'm fine with all that. But using legislation and the muscle of the government to try to restrict any one of their freedoms is just absolute garbage.
Yeah, I look at it the way you ever heard the Jim. You guys, Jim Jeffrey fans, right? I bet you Bell is. I bet you Bell loves Jim Jeffries, the Australian comedian.
Yeah, I know who he is.
I fucking hate Jim Jeffries.
He hates Jim Jeffries. Well, he had one great joke, or at least one that I think Bell would agree with, which is like, don't like gay marriage, don't marry a gay person. It's the same way I feel about it's the same way I feel about abortion. Yeah. You don't like abortion, don't fucking have one.
All right, here's a statistic for you. About 980,000 abortions occur in the United States every single year. That's a pretty high number compared to previous years, but
no, it's been trending down. Like look up like 91, 92. It's like
91, 92
million or something like that.
Since Roe, it has trended down.
All right, well, obviously.
No, since I'm sorry, since Roe was passed, it had trended down, not since it was overturned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Less than 4% of abortions in the United States are from people 18 and under.
Less than how many? Say that again, Bell.
4%.
4%. Yeah. So that's nationwide. Imagine just in Idaho. There's like 12 girls that need an abortion, and a half of them needs to leave the state without a parent to have one right now. It's absurd.
I'm gonna see how many abortions occur in Idaho as a whole.
14. That's my guess. Over under 14 and a half. I feel like it's a fucking Michigan basketball spread. Over under 14 and a half.
What a mess. It's I'm so sick and tired of the government just trying to legislate our lives.
And it's virtue signaling legislation too. That's what's bullshit about it. Like this idea that only liberals virtue signal, fuck you. They do often. But conservatives do the same bullshit, and their whole thing, that's the thing that has always bothered me about conservatism is how far fucking behind the curve they are on just what's popular and what's not popular with the general public.
I'm not here to be popular, Dan. I'm here to just push principle.
No, you can, and that's the thing is like you can sit there and you can talk about, if you're a Christian conservative, and talk about all the wonderful virtues of Christianity. And I'll sit there and I'll listen to you. Like I honestly, since my mid-20s, I'm a lot more interested in biblical teachings and how they relate to life philosophically. I'm not a Christian. I wouldn't call myself a Christian. But like, yeah, Christian values make sense to me. And when they talk about them, I go, and when these conservatives talk about them, I go, dude, everything you're saying makes sense to me and applies to my life in most ways and applies to society and culture in most ways. But when you take it to the point of stepping on rights and the ability to receive medical treatment, your Christianity can fuck off. Does that make sense?
0.2% of all the abortions in America happened in Idaho.
0.2%.
What a non-issue. I'd be pissed as a Idahoan.
And then how much of that 0.2% was a young girl that was a minor girl that needed to be taken out of state by somebody that wasn't their parent?
non-existent.
1,500 total abortions in 2021.
So
1,500 total.
I would say probably less than 10 of those girls were minors that needed to be taken out of state by somebody that wasn't their parent.
You hit your spread, Dad. Look at you go. Where's the DraftKings on abortions?
I should have taken. I took the under. What did I say? 14.5. I took the under. We have no way to prove this, but I think that would have been a good spread. Vegas would have had, that would have been some good odds.
Well, all right, boys.
Vegas would have made some money. Corey's got to go, but before
I wash my hands of this filth.
Before you do, Corey, tell the people where they can find us.
The Absurdtive Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com, and we can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibServativePod, and our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today.
And tell a friend. Podcasts spread best through word of mouth, so we appreciate all those.
That's right, Dan.
Go ahead. Go ahead and doing that. Before I leave you, just remember, Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water, and East Palestine, Ohio is still a fucking war zone. Let's not forget that. For Corey Walsh, I've been Dan Griffin. Bell the Body Snatcher. I fucked that all up because I screwed up our whole end of the show routine. This has been Libservative. Dan Griffin, Corey Walsh, Bell the Body Snatcher. We're fucking out of here.
Peace.